If you think artificial intelligence is some perfectly logical, totally unbiased machine, well, get ready to have that illusion completely shattered. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking the absolutely fascinating and slightly terrifying psychology behind our interactions with AI and discovering how our own flawed human brains are literally infecting the machine. Let's get right into it. So let's kick things off with a pretty provocative question. Why on earth do we expect AI to be bias-free when human intelligence fundamentally relies on bias? We carry around this myth that hard data is perfectly neutral, that algorithms don't have an agenda. But in our intensely human-centered world, that's just a complete illusion. To actually understand AI bias, we first have to take a hard look at our own brains. Over millennia, we evolved these brilliant survival tactics called heuristics. Basically, these are mental shortcuts, or rules of thumb. Your brain is essentially trying to save battery power, right? Doing a massive, exhaustive, logical analysis for every single choice you make would be totally exhausting. So, to conserve metabolic energy, your brain just takes the quick route. It prioritizes speed over perfect accuracy, which brilliantly illustrates Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman's famous stool process theory. Our brains operate in two distinct modes. System 1 is intuitive. It's fast, automatic, emotional, and runs entirely on those mental shortcuts. System 2, on the other hand, is the deliberate, slow, logical part of your brain. But here's the catch. System 2 is inherently lazy. It takes real, physical effort to fire it up, so our default is almost always System 1. It's a great energy saver, sure, but it leaves us highly prone to very predictable errors. And that brings us to a really crucial realization. Cognitive biases aren't just isolated mistakes or glitches in the matrix. They are the fundamental way human intelligence actually works. They're features of a biological network designed to keep you alive. So, if our reasoning depends on these biases, why would we expect the intelligent systems we build to be completely free of them? Now, here's where things get genuinely dangerous. When we introduce generative AI into the mix, those human mental shortcuts don't just disappear. They actively infect the machine. What happens is we create this toxic, bidirectional feedback loop. Your personal biases shape how you talk to the AI adapts its output to match your bias, and then you accept that output as objective fact. The user and the machine are literally just reinforcing one another. According to some incredible research from Harvard Business Review by Grace Chang and Heidi Grant, this cognitive hijacking infiltrates our AI collaboration across 3 distinct temporal phases. We're talking before, during, and after you even hit enter on a prompt. To use AI safely, we really need to recognize how our brain acts at each of these steps. Let's look at phase 1, before you even type a prompt. 2 users can look at the exact same AI tool and have dangerously opposite reactions based purely on their past experiences. If you've had a great result before, you might fall for the halo effect, giving the AI uncritical trust, assuming it's a flawless genius. On the flip side, if you've only heard about high-profile AI failures, you get the horns effect. You view it with intense skepticism and resist using it, even when it could actually really help you out. Also happening before you prompt is good old confirmation bias. Let's say you secretly believe a project is failing because of one specific issue. When you go to the AI, you probably aren't asking for an objective analysis, right? You'll likely frame your query to make the AI validate what you already believe. You aren't seeking the truth, you're just using a trillion-parameter AI as a giant yes man. Moving to phase 2, during the actual prompting. This perfectly demonstrates what we call leading question bias. What actually happens when you explicitly ask an AI something like, "Why is product X the best?" You might assume the AI will give you a fair, balanced breakdown, but you've already led the witness. See, the AI is fundamentally programmed to be helpful. It wants to please you, so it's going to answer your skewed question by highlighting all of product X's strengths and totally ignoring its glaring weaknesses. The AI's helpfulness actually becomes a massive liability, severely distorting the full picture just to give you what it thinks you want. Try basing a business strategy on that, and you are definitely heading for a disaster. Let's move to the final phase. After the AI generates its output, here our biases completely distort how we evaluate the information. First, we have the endowment effect. If you spend 20 minutes writing the absolute perfect prompt, you are going to overvalue whatever the AI spits out simply because of the time you invested. Then there's the framing effect. If an AI tells a doctor a surgery has a 20% mortality rate, they might hesitate. If it says an 80% survival rate, they feel confident. It's the exact same data, but the framing radically skews the human choice. And here is the real kicker. When we routinely, blindly accept these biased AI recommendations, we trigger something called cognitive offloading. We'll let the machine do the heavy lifting, we bypass our active, prefrontal guided logical analysis, and our lazy System 2 brain essentially goes to sleep. We aren't just saving time, we are actively degrading our own capacity for independent reasoning. It's a massive operational risk. And we've absolutely seen this play out in the real world. Think of the tragic Boeing 737 MAX incidents, which were directly linked to a dangerous overdependence on automated systems. Or those wildly publicized cases of lawyers getting sanctioned for submitting legal briefs filled with hallucinated fake citations generated by AI. They trusted the machine blindly and failed to verify. That right there is the terrifying reality of diminished independent reasoning. So, how do we actually fix this? Well, the hard truth is, we can't just patch an algorithm and call it a day. We can't code our way out of this. If the bias emerges fundamentally from human interaction, then we must shift from purely technical solutions to human-centric behavioral frameworks. Basically, we have to outsmart ourselves by changing how we behave alongside the technology. Organizations can start fighting back by implementing LSE-style dual-pronged interventions to systematically check these biases. For routine, everyday decisions, use choice architecture. Set up opt-out defaults so people are naturally guided toward unbiased settings without needing to use willpower. But for complex, high-stakes decisions, you've got to deploy active debiasing workshops. Force your team out of that lazy System 1 thinking by intentionally using the AI to play devil's advocate against your own strategies. Now, on the technical side, developers are exploring some truly mind-blowing stuff like collapse-aware AI, or CAI. CAI is brilliant because it doesn't try to naively erase human bias, because honestly, that's impossible. Instead, it explicitly models human bias into its architecture. Think of it as a stabilizing governor layer. It acts like a built-in speed bump to actively manage bias and prevent those runaway echo chamber loops. Using a really elegant mathematical framework, CAI treats our cognitive biases as structured, predictable variables. It monitors the interaction, looking at weighted moments in where bias injection occurs, and allows that governor layer to stabilize things before behavior collapse happens. Essentially, it's an AI that's self-aware enough to know its human pilot is flawed, and it actively steps in as a guardrail. How cool is that? But zooming out to a broader societal level, we desperately need to restructure our digital environments. Right now, so many platforms exploit our lazy System 1 brains, funneling us into echo chambers that naturally amplify outgroup hostility. To really combat this, we have to deliberately design spaces that encourage cross-partisan communication and heterogeneous discussions. We have to seek out people who think differently than we do. So what should you really take away from this explainer? It all boils down to this. AI is not some alien intelligence overriding us. It is essentially holding up a giant mirror to the limitations of our own minds. If the bias fundamentally emerges from our interaction patterns, then our solutions absolutely must address human behavior first and foremost. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought to chew on the next time you open up your favorite chatbot. Are we truly training AI to be intelligent? Or are we just teaching it how to be exactly as biased as we are? Keep that System 2 engaged out there, folks. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.